Good evening, everybody. This is a wandering author here, reminding you that we are all the author of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today we're going to be finishing up question number 5 of the Summa Theologica, which is on the nature of goodness. So, last time we went over articles 1 through 3, so today we'll start with article number 4, whether goodness has the aspect of a final cause. Now, remember, a final cause is something that determines an object's end, or what the object is good for. And goodness is praised as beauty, according to Dionysius, making it appear to have the attributes of a formal cause. Formal causes, on the other hand, refer to the form or structure of something. Aquinas says these give essential characteristics to an object. Dionysius further states that goodness is that whereby all things subsist and are. However, this gives goodness the appearance of an efficient cause, or that which immediately gives rise to something and makes goodness self-diffusive. Another line of thought derives from Augustine of Hippo to support goodness as an efficient cause, where he says, "We exist because God is good." However, Aquinas believes that goodness is the final cause, or the reason for reality. On the contrary, Aristotle stated in the second book of his Physics that it is to be considered as the end and the good of other things, for the sake of which something is showing, for the sake of which something is, showing that goodness is an ultimate or final cause. Goodness is desirable by all, and this implies an end, so goodness must be an end. Yet the thought is prior in idea to both an efficient cause or formal causes. And as discerned by Aquinas, for what is first in causing is last in the thing caused. If we look at fire as an example, it heats before it reproduces a flame, even though the heat follows from the flame's substance. When it comes to causation, goodness and the end come first. These concepts compel agents to action, then shape the agent's form. If we examine what is caused, we should anticipate them to converge, and the converse to be true. First, the form should be there, then its effect or its power to act, which is a perfection in being. And like Aristotle discovered, things are perfected when they can reproduce themselves. The basic principle of goodness, then, and its perfection is in its formality. Beauty and goodness are fundamental to an object's definition, and are identical within it. Both are predicated on its form. Thus, goodness is praised as beauty. Nevertheless, they differ in the realm of logic. Goodness is related to the appetite, being an object of desire, giving it the appearance of an end. Appetites are what drive us toward something, remember? Beauty is related to cognition, though. Conversely, as it is what pleases when seen. The senses are most delighted when their perceptions are in proper proportion, and even senses belong to a type of reason. As synthesized by Aquinas, now, since knowledge is by assimilation, and similarity relates to form, beauty properly belongs to the nature of a formal cause. Also, he who has a will is said to be good so far as he has a good will, because it is by our will that we employ whatever powers we may have. Hence, a man is said to be good, not by his good understanding, but by his good will. Moving on to question number 5, article 5. Whether the essence of goodness consists in mode, species, and order. Now, these right here are just different ways to logically define something: mode, species, and order. The mode is the most common of something, like in math. The species is exactly like what it sounds like, and then as in taxonomic species. And then order is a theological definition referring to how something is in the eternal order, like the hierarchy of angels versus the hierarchy of man. So it may appear that goodness's essence is not contained in mode, species, or order. That is because goodness and being do not differ logically, yet order, mode, and species belong to a being's nature. In the Book of Wisdom, chapter 11, verse 21, it is written, "Thou hast ordered all things in measure and number and weight." These three concepts, measure, number, weight, can be reduced to species, mode, and order. Augustine says, measure fixes the mode, or most common item in a grouping, of everything. Number gives it its species, and weight gives it rest and stability. Thus, goodness doesn't appear to consist in mode, species, and order. An additional wrench is thrown into the matter because we consider mode, species, and order to be themselves good. If that were the case, would not every mode have its own mode, species, and order in an endless procession on to infinity? It is not evil, the privation of mode, species, and order in the first place. Yet evil does not seem to be the complete lack of any good. Though the essence of goodness may not be described as evil in any way, it does appear that we may speak of evil modes, species, and orders, which is to say that we can define evil. Thus, does not that indicate goodness exists outside this hierarchy? The quote from Augustine of Hippo indicates that weight, number, and measure are the predicates of mode, species, and order. That is, where they derive from. Yet appearances would have us believe that not all goods are weighable, numerable, or measurable. As Ambrose says, it is of the nature of light not to have been created in number, weight, and measure. Yet we can clearly see the error in his way of thinking today, because photons. Now, on the contrary, Augustine elaborated, these three, mode, species, and order, as common good things, are in everything God has made. Thus, where these three abound, the things are very good. Where they are less, the things are less good, and where they do not exist at all, they can be nothing good. However, this would only be true if the essence of goodness consisted in mode, species, and order. Something is good the closer it is to being perfect, for only that is desirable. Perfection lacks nothing, but everything is its form. So to be good and perfect as a form is necessary, along with all things that follow from that assumption. Forms are thereby signified by species, like individual numbers, and species by their measurement. Thus, goodness consists in mode, species, and order, insofar as goodness is perfection. An accidental quality, or the quality of something that can change, like a color, is not good in itself, but only as it defines a being of accident. Evil deprives us of some good, like blindness can deprive us of sight. Augustine said, every mode as mode is good, but an evil mode, species, and order are so called as being less than they ought to be. Light obviously is measurable, and has a species, mode, and order, so Aquinas was limited by the understanding of his time. And closing out with article number 6, whether goodness is rightly divided into the virtuous, the useful, and the pleasant. Goodness may not seem to be the same as the virtuous, the useful, or the pleasant, because these concepts are all contained within one predicament, as defined by Aristotle. Now, the 10 predicaments are ways to logically define something, and they are substance, quantity, quality, relation, action, passion, time, place, posture, and habit. Further, divisions are usually made of opposites, but these three concepts do not seem to be in opposition with each other. For the virtuous is pleasing, and no wickedness is useful. If the divisions were opposites, then the virtuous and useful would be opposed, but this is not the case. The useful is not goodness, except so far as it is pleasing and virtuous. Therefore, the useful ought not be divided against the pleasant and the virtuous. On the contrary, Ambrose makes use of this division of goodness. St. Thomas discovered this is the proper way to consider both human goodness, and if we zoom out far enough, goodness from a universal perspective. As a term of the appetite, what is good is what is desirable, and we can see this from the movement of natural bodies, because they move towards their desires. Once an object has achieved its end, its movement will terminate, which shows us its ultimate motive. When we examine the appetite, what terminates its movement is considered the useful. Whatever is sought after that brings about the ultimate termination of the appetite is called the virtuous, or what is desired for its own sake. For the virtuous is that which is desired for its own sake, but that which terminates the movement of the appetite in the form of rest in the thing desired is called the pleasant, in the words of Aquinas. Goodness is definable by the 10 predicaments as far as it is identifiable with being, but this is a formality. Aquinas argues this is not a division of true opposites, but of opposite aspects, saying, now these things are called pleasing, which have no other formality under which they are desirable except the pleasant, being sometimes hurtful and contrary to virtue. Whereas the useful applies to such as have nothing desirable in themselves, but are desired only as helpful to something, further as the taking of bitter medicine, while the virtuous is predicated of such as are desirable in themselves. And goodness is not equally divided among the useful, pleasant, and virtuous, but only by analogy and priority. As such, it is mainly derived from the virtuous, then of the pleasant, and lastly of the useful, according to the vision of Aquinas. And that wraps up question number 5. Next time we'll be talking about the goodness of God and what that means. So, my question for you guys, as always, what are you doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. So until next time, God bless.